Reincarnation Isekai. Did you die? No problem, because now you are in a cooler world, probably born as a noble with magical abilities or even as a dragon. Reincarnation Isekai does exactly this. The main character starts anew in a different world while retaining memories of their past life. Moreover, they often come with overpowered abilities or at least an accelerated growth rate. In this genre, protagonists think like geniuses and act like adults even as children. Sometimes they are overwhelmingly strong from birth thanks to divine blessings, while other times they climb to the top through their own efforts. Stories in this genre frequently explore themes of second chances, correcting past mistakes, and the resolve to do everything right this time. Summoning Isekai. One day as you go about your normal life, you suddenly vanish in a flash of light and open your eyes in another world. Congratulations! You are now most likely declared the chosen hero by a kingdom, and it is your duty to defeat the Demon King. Do you want details? Forget it, because you now have a sacred sword, the ability to use magic, and a minimum harem potential. But sometimes, things don't go so smoothly. What if you were summoned as a side character? What if you arrived with a completely useless ability? Or worse, what if you were betrayed? At this point, you either accept your fate and rise up or grow powerful enough to overthrow the entire world. This genre often focuses on the protagonist's adaptation to their new reality, discovering magic and navigating political intrigue. At some point, you might ask, if I was brought here, can I go back? The answer, probably not. Game World Isekai. You've spent countless hours playing a game, collecting the most powerful gear, crushing bosses, and suddenly, you find yourself inside the game as your character. Congratulations, you are now trapped in the game world. But don't worry, you can at least open a menu to check your stats. In this genre, the main character is either a real player stuck inside the game or has somehow become a part of it. Best case scenario, they are already high level and insanely powerful. Worst case scenario, death in the game is real, and they might get killed by the first rabbit in the field. The rules are different from the real world. NPCs are conscious, quests must be taken seriously, and there are no cheat codes because the enemies are always the ones with cheats. Is there a way out? Usually not. So you either become the strongest in this world or live in constant fear of the game over screen. Reverse Isekai. Imagine spending your entire life fighting epic battles, conquering kingdoms and wielding magic that shakes worlds, only to suddenly find yourself in the modern world, unemployed and struggling to pay rent. Reverse Isekai is exactly this. Characters from fantasy worlds trying to survive in our ordinary world. Here you can't use magic because no one believes you. You can't rule kingdoms because putting Demon Lord on your resume won't land you a job, and your greatest enemy is no longer legendary heroes but electricity bills. You also have to figure out what hamburgers are, how bus passes work, and why people take selfies. This genre is usually comedy-driven, but can sometimes take on a dramatic tone. After all, what could be more tragic than a world-conquering demon lord working part-time at a fast food restaurant? Dark Isekai. Forget about getting overpowered abilities and building a harem the moment you enter an isekai world. In this genre, from the moment you arrive, you are faced with hunger, war, betrayal, and death. Dark Isekai serves as a reminder that fantasy worlds are not always fun. Here, death is permanent, allies are untrustworthy, and enemies are ruthless. Instead of being a king or a hero, you start as a slave, a war captive, or an abandoned orphan. Your survival depends entirely on your intelligence, willpower, and if you're lucky, some power. More often than not, the protagonist is forced to push their ethical boundaries just to stay alive. A happy ending? Maybe. But chances are, even if you win, your innocence has already died. This is the black hole of Isekai. Once you enter, you either never escape or never remain the same. Anti-Isekai. An isekai world might seem like paradise, but it's only natural for someone to want to escape from it. Anti-Isekai tells exactly this kind of story. The protagonist never wanted to be in this new world, and seeks every possible way to return home. These worlds are usually dark, harsh, and unwelcoming, making survival a constant struggle. Sometimes the protagonist just wants to live a normal life, or even worse, they realize they are completely trapped, and the only way out is death. In any case, characters in this genre frequently scream, "I just want to go back." Finding an escape route is never easy, but one thing is certain. Life in this world is difficult, and nothing goes the way the protagonist wants. Historical Isekai. Traveling to the past is always an interesting idea. If we add fantasy elements to it, we get historical fantasy isekai. The main character goes to an ancient era or a mythological world and tries to survive either as a hero or an ordinary person. This genre often involves stepping into a world intertwined with old wars, legends, and magic. Characters can sometimes be kings or warriors, or just a simple peasant or slave. But one way or another, they must carve out a path for themselves in this new world. facing historical events, using magic, battling legendary monsters, everything comes together. Mecha Isekai, legendary giant robots, alien worlds, and incredibly powerful enemies. Mecha Isekai pushes the boundary between technology and magic. In this genre, heroes are transported to another world, armed with giant robots or mechanical beasts. The battles here are a mix of high technology and magic. The main character is usually not a powerful warrior, but somehow they master controlling the giant robot. And then, they throw themselves into war. The fusion of both fantasy elements and the sci-fi world takes center stage in this genre. While trying to save the world with their giant robot, the protagonist learns to harness both technology and magic. Science fiction isekai. Isekai worlds don't always have to be set in ancient times or filled with fantastical creatures. Science fiction isekai takes us to distant futures or the depths of space. The main character embarks on an adventure on another planet or in outer space. This new world features interplanetary wars, artificial intelligences, and galactic emperors. Sometimes the character has to assist in scientific discoveries, while other times they uncover a long-lost ancient civilization drifting through the void of space. In this genre, technology and scientific advancement play a defining role, while fantasy elements are usually minimal, but the result is always thrilling. Fantasy Isekai. Once again, you've fallen into a fantasy world, but this time, it's filled with magical creatures, epic kingdoms, and legendary heroes. Fantasy Isekai is one of the classic isekai genres, placing the main character in a fantastical realm. This genre typically features magic, ancient legends, and mythical beasts. Our protagonist usually embarks on a grand adventure, fights mystical beings, and uncovers the secrets of lost kingdoms. The world is full of fantasy elements, but it's not always a paradise. Faced with numerous dangers and challenges, the protagonist must use their powers to survive and save the world. Battles fought in this fantasy realm, the use of magical elements, and grand adventures are all integral. The main character's duties often include researching which class is the strongest, discovering the best magic, and ultimately saving the entire world. Dual World Isekai. The Dual World Isekai genre tells stories where the protagonist lives a parallel life in two different worlds. These worlds may be completely distinct, but the main character must maintain their existence in both. Typically, one is a fantasy world, and the other is a normal one. In this genre, the hero faces various challenges while trying to balance their life in both worlds. Sometimes they get lost in one world, while in the other, they regain their strength. Traveling between two worlds constantly shapes their life and presents different obstacles. The interaction between the two worlds and the protagonist's responsibilities in both play a significant role in the storylines. Harem Isekai. You've arrived in a new world, and suddenly, you find yourself surrounded by beautiful, strong, or intriguing characters. This is exactly what Harem Isekai is all about. In this genre, the main character usually attracts a lot of attention and quickly forms a group of admirers. These admirers can be princesses, warriors, mages, or even monster girls. Harem Isekai often contains comedy and romance. While the hero deals with world-saving missions, they must also decide whom to pursue romantically. However, everyone being interested in the protagonist sometimes leads to funny, sometimes complicated situations. This genre typically includes cliches such as the protagonist being overly powerful or somehow incredibly attractive to the opposite sex. But one thing is certain, love triangles and romantic drama are inevitable.